like if you're flying in a dream, like you are thinking of flying. I mean, that would seem like fruit, right?
Yes, well, and flying can be, coming up to a higher perspective, seeing things from a higher perspective. So a lot of times we get caught in, the warfare, right, between, person to person, and we take on the offense and bitterness and betrayal. But when we have flying dreams, what it's saying is, hey, come up here and let me show you from a different perspective. You don't have to be offended. You don't have to move in bitterness. You don't have to be, feel betrayed, because this is why that person did that. And so now we move into empathy and compassion, and we move at a higher level. And really it's just God saying, hey, come up higher. Let me show you things from up here. You don't have to wage war person to person, combat, right? So come up here and even, let me show you something from, balcony view, basically. And flying is that supernatural. It's when you're flying naked that really gets interesting, right? So when you're naked flying, it just speaks of, your transparency and your vulnerability. So naked in dreams are not bad. All the time. It just, it can mean that you are being transparent, you're being vulnerable, and it can also mean that maybe you're exposing too much of yourself, casting your pearls before swine, right? So don't give it all away, keep some, keep it for those who really matter and who really want, what you have.
Oh, wow. That's pretty, so like if you dream about one of your enemies, that you have right now, in the physical, or someone that below it. So, what kind of stuff happens with that? I mean, why would you be driven about that when you want to try to keep them away from you?
Right, and I'll tell you, I'll give you a perfect example, and what you're saying is exactly the dream that I had that got me started in dream interpretation. I was being falsely accused in an organization, and I didn't know where the accusations were coming from, but they were outlandish, and all of the corporate board believed them. And even though I had been there for quite some time and my character stood, they felt like these, they were threatened by the accusations, and I didn't know where they were coming from. And when I asked where they were coming from, they were told, the board would say, well, you don't need to know about that. I'm going to keep my sources private, right? And or this one, here's my favorite, right? Well, we're protecting that person because that person's scared of you. And so what happened was I actually had a dream, and in the dream, the girl I was mentoring at the time was holding hands with my best friend, and they walked into the dream, and the girl I was mentoring said, I'm scared, I don't know what to say. And my best friend said, don't worry, I'll tell you what to say. And I immediately knew the accusations were coming from my best friend. And sure enough, it played out exactly like the dream had stated, and it was so specific, and it told me who it was that, where those accusations were coming from in the dream. And so when we dream about our enemies, it may not also, it may be literal, like God is saying, hey, I need you to watch out for this person because it's pretty serious. Or, and it's not to attack, it's not to, further the combat, it's to be aware so you can remove yourself from the toxicity. And then also, the other thing to look at when you have people in dreams is always look up the meaning of their name. Always, because 80% of the time, if someone is in your dream, it's usually an interaction with their name. Why? Because in the Bible, we notice that God was always changing people's names. In fact, it says when you get to heaven, you receive a new name. And so names mean everything, and names carry authority. And it's we notice that we name our animals. We name, they named in the Bible, they named rivers and altars, and everything had a name, and that name was symbolic to where that location was. Perfect example, Gilgag, bitter waters, and that's where the gossip took place in the Bible with Miriam and Aaron. I think I got that right. I might got my stories mixed up. But what I'm saying is that names are symbolic, and so you want to look at the name, because when, there's maybe a natural manifestation of why you're at combat with that one person with their name, because it actually may have a spiritual understanding, a spiritual parallel. And so the name, look up the meaning of the name. And so when you look up the meaning of the name, it'll usually have a positive meaning. But if it's a negative situation, you flip that meaning, because truly, my name, Amy, means beloved. But before I grew in character development, I was not so beloved. I was actually hell on wheels and a force to be reckoned with. So I was the exact opposite. Look at the name. Hey, listen, if you have a celebrity in your dream, look up at the name of the celebrity. Look at read their IMDb page, their Wikipedia page. Go down and look at the list of movies that they've been in. You'll feel this weight and what we call and so right.
Well, we are almost out of time, and I wanted to ask you about the dream that I had last night.
Okay.
Real super fast. I was dreaming, and my boyfriend, who has passed away, was in the dream. His name was Michael, and we were at the house that I grew up in, that he, as far as my mom, had never seen and had burnt to the ground when I was in 7th grade. But we were in this house, and it was all, built and everything, and decorated just like it was when I was a little kid. And we would walk through the house, and then next thing I know, we'd go from there, just up the road, because I lived in the country, up the road to my grandparents' house. And we were standing in the yard, we were talking, and my grandmother, who was passed away as well, was leading us to the swing that out in the yard. And then we sat down, and Mike smiled at me, and then I woke up.
And what was in the yard? What was in the yard? A swing was in the yard.
A swing in the yard.
Okay, and it was the front yard or the backyard?
The front yard.
Okay, so here's the thing. Like I said with Michael, and I do want to touch on this. A lot of times people who have passed away will appear back to us, and they come back, and they always come with 3 things. It's one of 3 things. They come back to give us comfort, give us a message, or give us a gift, right? And so if you were to look at this dream, which of those 3 would you feel like Michael came back to visit you in this dream? What would be the prevailing concept? Would you feel like it was to bring comfort, to bring a message, or to bring a gift?
Probably to bring comfort.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really gotten over his passed away.
Right.
And it's been 12 years. Yeah, it's been 12 years. So I